And a pleasant good evening from Bill Snyder Family Stadium. Dan Lucero with you for this K-State instant reaction video on 580 Sports Talk on YouTube, our YouTube channel, and also on Facebook at WIBW News on a night when K-State's hopes of reaching the Big 12 championship game and the college football playoff went splat in an ugly first 30 minutes of football. K-State dug themselves a 24-point hole and could not climb out in a 24-14 loss tonight to Arizona State. That's two losses in a row for the Wildcats. They are now 7-3 on the year, 4-3 in the Big 12 conference. And I am just stunned that Kansas State played that half of football in the first half. After the bad loss at Houston, after the bye, with so much to play for, I fully anticipated that this would be a Kansas State team that came out firing, that came out with a lot of energy and emotion, night game, big crowd, chance to put it to a team that they'd never seen before in conference play. And instead, K-State turned the ball over on their second offensive snap. They committed a third down penalty that kept the ensuing drive alive and allowed Arizona State to take a 7-0 lead instead of settling for a field goal try. And that really set the tone for the night as Kansas State made mistakes in all three phases of the game, committed back-breaking penalties, missed tackles, missed throws, missed blocks. It was such an uncharacteristic performance. It's such an unexpected performance in that first 30 minutes that saw K-State fall behind 21-0 and then give up a field goal in the first drive of the third quarter. So really, by the time K-State had a chance to really respond with their offense in the second half, they were already down by 3 scores, by 24 points. And that's just too much to recover from against a good football team like Arizona State. I think Chris Kleiman was as baffled by it as maybe you were watching it, and certainly as baffled by it as I was. And that is the main takeaway I have from this one, is just a disaster of a first 30 minutes put K-State in a hole that they could not climb out of. And a big part of the reason that K-State has now lost 2 consecutive games, the offense continues to struggle. I think you could look back at the Houston game and you could talk about the rain and say, yeah, that played a role. That was a factor, the rain and the wind. But tonight, perfect conditions. And it was just a not really functional offense in the first half. And there are a lot of things at play here. I think Avery Johnson struggled tonight through 2 interceptions and was largely ineffective, missed some open receivers, missed some throws that you would expect him to be able to make. And that was a big part of the reason. The interior offensive line continues to struggle. K-State's running game has not looked the same since Colorado. Some of that is Avery Johnson not being the same threat on the ground since he got injured and had to come out of that Colorado game. And it does make you wonder if maybe there's something more to Avery's health that maybe we don't know about, aren't privy to, but he has not been the same running threat. And as a result, DJ Giddens has not been the same threat. Now his final numbers look shiny tonight because he gained 91 yards on 3 consecutive carries in the second half and ended up with 133 yards on his 14 carries. But in the first half, and it was much like the Houston game and really like every game going back to West Virginia, K-State has struggled to run the ball on first downs. They're getting beat up front, and those first down runs that were gaining 4, 5, 6 yards a tote early in the season are now only going for 2 yards. And that puts K-State in tough second and third down positions. You can blame the play calling if you'd like. I know many Kansas State fans are quick to do that, and I certainly think at times it has been unimaginative, vanilla, befuddling. Those are some adjectives I would use at times, but I don't think you can put it all on the play calling of Connor Riley and Matt Wells. I think you have to look at an offensive line that has really regressed and a running game that has regressed and a quarterback in Avery Johnson who has had his moments, certainly, but has had games where he has looked very much like a first-year starter and a sophomore. And tonight was one of those where he showed, I think, some of his inexperience, missing some open receivers, being hesitant to tuck the ball and run it. Again, that might be a health issue. Being not confident in the pocket, waiting too long to let a throw rip, not putting the right amount of touch on throws, just an uneven game for him. And it was kind of fitting, unfortunately, for Avery that it ended on that interception with about however many seconds it was left on K-State's final offensive play. Really kind of emblematic of the struggles that Avery had in this one. And look, there were some good things that happened for K-State's offense in the second half. They did find something on the ground, a couple of big runs for Giddens, like I mentioned, to make his final numbers look good. And Trey Spivey was a nice surprise, getting involved in the pass game. Him and Dante Cephas had their best games of the season with the absences of Keegan Johnson and Jaden Jackson, both of whom missed this game due to injury. Joe Jackson with his first career touchdown was a nice moment for him after he came in. He became running back number 2 after Dylan Edwards left with an injury in the first half. But, you're not looking for moral victories if you're a team with playoff aspirations. Those kind of ring hollow. It's nice that they had some good signs in the second half, but 14 points is 14 points. And you don't win a lot of football games when you score 14 points. You don't win a lot of football games when you turn it over 3 times and you're -2 in the turnover department. And that's where K-State finds themselves. And it wasn't just the offense. Defensively, they were not good on the money down. Allowed Arizona State to convert 9 of 12 third downs in the first 3 quarters. Some big third and long conversions that helped Arizona State keep away in the second half. Now, look, let's be honest. Some of this is Arizona State's good. Like, they're not 8-2 by accident. That's a good football team. They've got their quarterback, redshirt freshman Sam Levitt, has played really well and was much more of a threat on the ground tonight than his counterpart, had some big scrambles, made some big throws. They've got a star at wide receiver in Jordan Tyson, who had 12 catches for 176 yards and 2 touchdowns tonight. They have a star at running back in Cam Scadaboo, and even though he was held under 3 yards per carry, he got the tough yards. He got the 2 yards on 3rd and 1. He got the 1 yard on 3rd and 1. He was able to keep the chains moving for Arizona State throughout that first half, and also caught 4 passes for 44 yards. They got dudes on offense, and they made a lot of plays. They kept K-State's pass rush from really making an impact in the game, and K-State's defense has been really good on 3rd down all year. Not tonight. Again, 9 of 12 in the first 3 quarters for Arizona State as they marched out to that 24-0 lead. So problems on defense for Kansas State, absolutely, and problems in special teams. Bad snaps on kicks have cost K-State 10 points in the last 2 weeks. For a school that has prided itself on being special teams they are leaving money on the table with bad snaps. And again, last week you could have fairly blamed the weather. Perfect conditions tonight, and a bad snap that kept Chris Tennant from adding to the scoreboard in the first half, and a bad snap that was really the backbreaker. K-State down 10, needed points with 3 minutes and change left, decide to kick the field goal, and Tennant's timing is thrown off by another low snap that rolled back to the holder. You just can't have those situations. Really, it's been 2 years in a row now that K-State hasn't been up to its typical standards in special teams. And a lot of the problems that I've mentioned here, some stale play calling perhaps, and special teams miscues and penalties and mental mistakes, things like that, it comes to coaching. And I got to tell you, I've never seen Chris Kleiman as despondent as he looked in a post-game press conference as I did after tonight's game. He made a reference to the last 2 weeks having been really rough on him personally. And maybe there's something more there that we don't have the full story with regards to K-State's head coach, but you could tell that this one really, really hurt. And the fact that it's now 2 in a row, and that this team, with all of the expectations and all of the possibility coming into the season, is now surely going to miss the Big 12 championship game and surely will not play in the college football playoff. I think that really, really stings Chris Kleiman. He's taking this one really hard, and he is the kind of coach that takes accountability for everything that happens in his program. He will never lay the blame at anybody's feet but his own, and will always take responsibility after a loss, saying, I wasn't good enough. I didn't get the players ready to play. I didn't get the game plan right. It's always Chris Kleiman taking accountability, and I appreciate that about Chris Kleiman, but there also has to be accountability elsewhere in the program, because what we're looking at with Kansas State now is a second straight year where a promising season appears to be skidding to a disappointing finish. Remember, K-State lost 2 of their Final 4 last year, including the snow game in Farmageddon. Had a look at a Big 12 championship game appearance and ended up having to settle for the Pop-Tarts Bowl. This year, if they don't go to Ames and win Farmageddon, to say nothing of what looks like a challenging Senior Day home game next week against Cincinnati, could be another mid-tier bowl game, and that is not what this program should expect. 2 years ago, when K-State won the Big 12, it felt like this program was on an upward trajectory, and now there are some uncomfortable questions for Kleiman and his staff to answer about why it feels like things are stuck in the mud a little bit, why it feels like this is headed toward another season, which would be a 4th in a row with 4 losses. Yeah, they lost 4 games the year they won the Big 12. You include the bowl game. Last year, lost 4 in the regular season. This year, they have to win out to avoid a 4-loss regular season. And that's not the program that K-State fans expect these Wildcats to be in the new Big 12. And I don't think it's the program that Chris Kleiman expects this K-State program to be. I'm a believer in Chris Kleiman. I'm a backer of Chris Kleiman. He's a winner. He's won everywhere he's been. And I believe he can get things turned around, but this is a bit of a look in the mirror moment for the program, because that first half performance and losing 2 straight games when you're 7-1 and on track to control your own destiny to make the college football playoff, to go from that to this in 3 weeks, it's not acceptable. And there are going to have to be some uncomfortable conversations and some uncomfortable decisions perhaps made moving forward for this Kansas State program, because this is a uncomfortably poor trend, unmistakably, these last 2 weeks. And now they have to win out, which will not be easy. Again, they got to go to Ames in 2 weeks, and Cincinnati is a solid team coming to town. Last I looked, I haven't seen the final score or what's happened in Ames tonight, but last I looked, they were giving Iowa State hell tonight. Certainly they can come to Manhattan, do the same to a reeling K-State team unless they get it fixed. And they've got to get it fixed in all 3 phases. They have to be a whole lot better than they've been the last 2 weeks. That's going to do it from Bill Snyder Family Stadium. I am going to make the drive home. Thanks for hanging out with me. Appreciate Mark and Andrew and in the comments on YouTube and others watching along tonight on our YouTube channel and on Facebook. Thanks to those who will watch this video later on. Would appreciate if you catch this on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already. We'll have more to say about this one on 580 Sports Talk from 3 to 6 Central on Monday on 580 WIBW and on these same video channels. Until then, I'm Dan Lucero saying good night and enjoy the rest of your